Every week, most Australians walk into the same building, follow the same path, and leave spending more than they planned to. Not because they forgot their list, not because prices went up overnight, but because the building itself was designed, from the floor plan to the lighting to the shelf height, to quietly override the decisions you made before you walked in. This isn't a new observation. Retail psychology has been studied and applied for decades. But what has changed is the precision. The tools available to supermarkets now are far more sophisticated than anything that existed 20 years ago. And once you understand what those tools are actually doing, the grocery run you do every week starts to look completely different. Because this connects to something bigger than a shopping trip. It connects to why household grocery bills in Australia have risen faster than wages for the past several years, even when people believe they are being careful. And this is where the real problem begins. Trick 1. What people see. Most people think of a supermarket visit as a neutral errand. You have a list. You go in. You get what you need. You come out. The experience feels ordinary because it is ordinary. You have done it hundreds of times. The familiarity creates a kind of automatic pilot. You stop noticing the environment the same way you stop noticing the hum of a refrigerator in a quiet room. That automatic pilot is not an accident. It is the goal. Research published in the Journal of Marketing has consistently shown that familiar, low-friction environments reduce deliberate decision-making. When everything feels normal and expected, the analytical part of your thinking quietens down. You shift from evaluation mode to habit mode, and habit mode spends more. Australian households spend an average of between $200 and $400 per week on groceries, depending on family size. Studies from consumer research groups suggest that somewhere between 20 and 40% of supermarket purchases on any given trip were not on the original list. That is not a small number. Across a year, for a typical Australian family, unplanned purchases can represent $2,000 to $5,000 in additional spending. The question worth sitting with is, whose decisions are those, really? Trick 2. What's actually happening? The first thing to understand is that the layout of a supermarket is not designed for your convenience. It is designed to maximize the distance you travel before finding what you came in for. The most frequently purchased items, milk, bread, eggs, are almost always positioned at the back of the store or in corners that require you to pass through as many other aisles as possible to reach them. This is not coincidental. It is a deliberate structural decision with a name in retail design, the anchor product placement strategy. Every meter of distance between the entrance and the item you need is a meter filled with products you did not plan to buy. The second thing is the trolley. Supermarket trolleys in Australia have grown significantly in average size over the past 3 decades. A study tracking retail cart sizes found that increasing cart size by roughly 40% led to a corresponding increase in spending of over 40%. Not because shoppers needed more, but because a half-empty trolley creates a subtle psychological discomfort. Humans are pattern completers. An empty space feels like an unfinished task. You fill it, not intentionally, just automatically. This is documented retail behavior, not speculation. The original research was conducted by marketing professor Brian Wansink at Cornell University, who studied how container size influences consumption and purchasing decisions across multiple product categories. The trolley is, in a precise sense, a consumption vessel. Its size sets an unconscious ceiling for how much feels like enough. The third thing is height. Eye-level shelves are the most expensive real estate in a supermarket. The products placed there are not placed there because they are the best value. They are placed there because manufacturers pay slotting fees, sometimes thousands of dollars per product per store, for that positioning. What you see first is what someone paid to put in front of you. The products with the best price per unit ratio are almost always on the lowest shelves or the highest shelves, the ones that require effort to reach. That friction is intentional. Effort reduces purchase likelihood. The best value products in many categories are the ones requiring the most physical movement to access. And this is the part most people miss. These are not just sales techniques. They are the result of decades of behavioral science research applied to physical space. The supermarket you shop in has been tested, adjusted, and retested, not once, but continuously, using data from your own purchasing patterns. This connects to something that changed quietly in Australian retail from the 1990s onward: the introduction of loyalty car programs and what those programs actually collect. Trick 3. Why this changed. Before loyalty programs, supermarkets understood aggregate customer behavior. They knew what sold and what didn't. After loyalty programs, they understood individual behavior. Flybuys and everyday rewards, the two dominant programs in Australian supermarkets, are not primarily discount schemes. They are data collection systems. The discount is the exchange offered in return for permission to track exactly what you buy, when you buy it, how your basket changes when prices shift, and what you purchase alongside what. This data is valuable in ways that extend well beyond the individual store. It is used to negotiate with suppliers, to determine what products stay on shelves and which are discontinued, and increasingly, to time promotional offers in ways that are calibrated to individual shopping patterns. A promotion arriving in your app is not random. It is timed to a moment when, based on your purchase history, you are statistically likely to be running low on something. Researchers studying retail loyalty programs have described this as predictive restocking nudges, offers designed not to create demand, but to intercept demand that already exists and redirect it toward a particular store or product at a particular margin. The goal is not to save you money. The goal is to be where you think of first when ready to spend it. The loyalty program has also reshaped how loss leaders work. A loss leader is a product sold at or below cost to drive store traffic. Supermarkets have used them for as long as supermarkets have existed. But historically, loss leaders were blunt instruments, the same offer to every shopper. Personalized data has made them surgical. The product discounted for you is the one most likely to bring you specifically into the store based on your demonstrated purchasing behavior. You are not receiving a general offer. You are receiving a targeted one. And once you are in the store, the next 6 items in your trolley are where the margin is recovered. Trick 4. The color psychology of pricing. Supermarket price tags are not a neutral information system. They are a persuasion system. The color red triggers urgency. Decades of retail research confirm that red price tags increase purchase likelihood even when the discount is minimal or non-existent. Some products carry red tags that indicate a permanent everyday price, not a reduction at all, because the visual signal of red overrides the reading of the actual number for most shoppers moving at normal speed through an aisle. Yellow tags signal value, but value and price are not the same thing. A yellow tag on a premium product does not mean that product is the cheapest option in its category. It means it is discounted relative to its own previous price, which may still be higher than a competing product carrying no tag at all. The most revealing exercise in any supermarket aisle is to ignore the tag colors entirely and compare only the price per unit figures, the small number usually printed in smaller font at the bottom of the label. When you sort products by that number alone, the ranking of apparent value changes significantly. The products that feel like bargains often are not. The products that feel ordinary often are. This also applies to multi-buys. A 2-for-1 offer only saves money if you are going to buy 2. For perishable goods, a multi-buy that results in waste costs more than buying one at full price. The deal is structured to move volume for the store. Whether it moves savings to you depends entirely on your actual consumption pattern. Trick 5. The sensory environment. Modern supermarkets manage smell, sound, and temperature as deliberately as they manage shelf placement. Bakery departments are almost always positioned near store entrances. The smell of baking bread is one of the most powerful appetite triggers identified in consumer psychology research. A study from the University of South Brittany found that ambient food aromas increased unplanned food purchases by a measurable margin. Hunger increases purchase volume, and the scent reaches you before you have picked up a single item, often before you have even retrieved your trolley. Supermarket music has been studied since the 1980s. Research published in the Journal of Consumer Research found that slower tempo music in retail environments increased sales by over 30% compared to faster tempo music, not because customers enjoyed it more, but because it slowed their walking pace. A slower pace means more time in front of products. More time means more unplanned purchases. The music is not atmosphere. It is a pacing mechanism. Temperature zoning is less widely discussed, but relevant. Produce sections are kept cool and often misted to create an impression of freshness, but also because cooler environments are associated with higher quality judgments in consumer research. Studies have found that people consistently rate the same product as higher quality in a cooler environment than a warmer one. You are not evaluating the produce neutrally. You are evaluating it inside a designed sensory experience. Trick 6. The unit pricing confusion. Australian consumer law requires supermarkets to display unit pricing, the cost per 100 grams, per liter, or per unit, to allow genuine comparison between products. In principle, this levels the playing field. In practice, the implementation is designed to make comparison as difficult as possible. Different products in the same category often display unit pricing in different base units. One pasta brand shows price per 100 grams. Another shows price per kilogram. A third shows price per serve. Comparing these requires mental arithmetic that most people do not perform in a busy aisle, under time pressure, with children present, or mental list running. Research from the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission has noted that inconsistent unit pricing significantly reduces its usefulness as a comparison tool. The inconsistency is not an oversight. Standardized unit pricing would make comparison easy. Easy comparison would consistently route purchases toward the cheapest option. That is not in the interest of manufacturers paying premium shelf fees or supermarkets managing category margin. Trick 7. The checkout architecture. The final layer is the one you encounter when your guard is lowest. Checkout queues are designed as a last purchasing environment. The products positioned at eye level in a checkout queue are almost exclusively high-margin impulse items: confectionery, small snacks, drinks, magazines, batteries, and seasonal add-ons. These are not stocked here because they are things people regularly need. They are stocked here because purchase resistance is lowest when you are already committed to the transaction. Behavioral economists call this the payment coupling relaxation effect. Once you have mentally accepted that you are spending a certain amount, the psychological cost of adding a small item feels proportionally smaller. A $2 chocolate bar feels trivial beside a $180 grocery bill. The framing is the trick. Self-checkout lanes, now dominant in most large Australian supermarkets, were partly introduced for labor cost reasons, but their effect on impulse purchasing is also well documented. The removal of a human cashier reduces social friction. You are less observed, less accountable to the pace of another person, and more likely to add items during the transaction itself. This is not the first time this kind of shift has happened. Every generation has faced a version of this, an environment redesigned around someone else's interests in ways that took time to fully understand. What makes this era different is the data layer underneath it. The physical tricks are old. The personalization sitting behind them is not. None of this requires an extreme response. Awareness is the tool. Once you see the structure, you can move through it differently. A few shifts that consumer research suggests are actually effective. Shop with a list and a total. Not just a list of items, a rough spending limit written down before you enter. The presence of a budget number activates the deliberate thinking mode that the store environment is designed to suppress. People who set a pre-shop total consistently spend less than those who shop by feel, even when they believe they are being careful. Use a basket instead of a trolley for smaller shops. The constraint of physical space counteracts the empty trolley effect. You cannot fill what isn't there. Photograph unit prices on your phone for the products you buy regularly. Over 2 or 3 shops, you will identify the price floor for your most common purchases. When a promotional price drops below that floor, it is a genuine saving. When it does not, the color tag is doing its job on you, not for you. Shop the perimeter before the aisles. Fresh produce, proteins, and dairy are almost always on the outer walls of a supermarket. The inner aisles are predominantly processed and packaged goods with higher margins. A shop that starts and stays mostly on the perimeter tends to be both cheaper and nutritionally different from one that moves through every aisle. Unlink your loyalty card from your app notifications. The data collected is already collected. That does not change. But removing the personalized promotion push reduces the number of externally timed decisions you are being invited to make. A deal that finds you is rarely a deal you needed. A deal you sought out usually is. These are not radical suggestions. They are small structural changes to how you move through an environment that was structured around a different goal than yours. This isn't just about grocery shopping. The same principles, environment design, friction reduction, default settings, personalized data, appear across almost every consumer environment Australians move through daily. Insurance renewal defaults, subscription services, fuel apps, streaming recommendations. The underlying pattern is consistent. Environments are increasingly designed around deep knowledge of individual behavior, and that design is optimized for an outcome that is not yours. Grocery shopping is simply where this pattern is most visible, most frequent, and most directly connected to both household finances and physical health. It happens multiple times a week for most families across decades. The cumulative effect of small, repeated decisions influenced by a designed environment is not small. The research on ultra-processed food purchasing is not separate from this conversation. The products most aggressively promoted through personalized offers, positioned at eye level, placed at checkout, and associated with loyalty rewards are disproportionately the products with the longest ingredient lists and the highest processing levels. That has been documented in purchasing data analyses from consumer health researchers in Australia and internationally. The connection between retail environment design and what actually ends up in Australian households is rarely examined as a single subject. The retail discussion happens in one place, the nutrition discussion in another, the data privacy discussion somewhere else entirely. But they're describing the same system from different angles. The supermarket is one layer of this. But the same pattern, familiar thing, hidden design, quiet long-term cost, runs through the food itself. Not just how it is sold, but what it is, how it is made, what replaced, what was in everyday food 40 years ago that is not in it now, and why that shift happened so gradually that most people never noticed it happening at all. Because when you look at what changed in Australian food between the 1970s and today, not just the packaging, not just the prices, but the actual composition of ordinary products that sit in every household, the picture becomes considerably more interesting and harder to ignore once you've seen it. That is the next part of this.